Hi, welcome to the AFL-CIO's Union Hall 101 training. Let's talk a little bit about the admin functionality. The little wheel over here is one of the most important areas for your admin functionality. And of course, down here, we're going to go into a lot of detail about creating different types of content. But first, I want to just quickly walk through what's in the wheel because you're going to use this probably not as much as this area, but when you need it, it's going to be very important. So first, I mentioned earlier that the system has a lot of websites, and so if you could be an administrator of many sites, and so you're going to see a lot of areas where it talks about maps and things like that. And really, it's just basically a map of the sites that are sort of above you, and it gives you a little bit of an outline of the actual menu bar and things like that. But not super useful. You probably won't use that very much. The content is definitely going to be something that you use a lot. It's really important to know about it, especially if you create content and instead of publishing it, you save it for later. The only way to get to it at that point is to come back to this little wheel and then come to the content section. So let's go ahead and click on that. So we go to the little wheel and then the content, and that's going to open up here for us in a second. Okay, here we go. So now we're back in the content. And one of the things I really like about the content section is that it has all of your content. It doesn't matter if you've created a basic page or a form or an article or an event. All of it's here to be found, and it'll be in order of it'll be in order of when you actually created it. So it'll be really easy to find. But you can also jump in and edit any of your content. You can see when it was last updated. You can see if it's published or not, who the author is, what type of content is. Is it a promo, event, a basic page, an article? What space it lives in, which is really great if you manage more than one site. So the state feds or an ALF, an Area Labor Federation, would, this might be useful to them because they would potentially oversee more than one site. And then, of course, the title of the article. And then you can come up here and search. In the beginning, it might seem like, you don't really need a search because there's only a few articles. But imagine if you're using this for a couple of years, you can have a lot of content in here. And so it's really great because you can search on section. I use that a lot. And sometimes I use type. And then, you can do author and title. So all kinds of great stuff to find your articles and hit apply. Now, if you do archive it, it'll simply go into an area that's archived, and then you can always reverse that and pull anything out of archive. The way that websites work now is you don't necessarily have to archive anything or delete anything, which is why we don't really have a delete button on here. The reason there is no delete is because websites are kind of seen as blogs now, where if you write an article, a year from now, that article might still be relevant and something very interesting for someone to find. So imagine if you were writing on one of the topics of that unions were fighting for today, that would still potentially be relevant to somebody a year from now that might be doing research. And if they are searching online and they come across your article, that's really valuable. So now we don't really delete stories. You don't have to worry about ever taking a story off your page. But if you really wanted to clean up your site for whatever reason, you could come in and archive stories. You could then use them later if you wanted to. And you could also go in and edit it and basically take most of the content out if you were really trying to get rid of the story for some reason. All right, so that is the wheel, and that's the content. Let's go to archive next. If you click on archive, you can quickly find anything that you've put in archive, and you can just simply remove it and put it back on your page and start to use it again. So that's the archive. And then syndication is if you're national, state organization, one of those syndicates content down to you, you can simply parse out the ones that were actually syndicated, and you can see who they were, which tags they were syndicated to. So I can see this story was syndicated to the Area Labor Federation, CLCs, and state feds, and I can see who the author was and all of that. So it gives you a much more granular look at syndicated content. And you can actually edit these articles on your specific website. So if you wanted to go in and add a little bit more content about something that's happening local, so you want to take part of the AFL's content and then add your own, you can certainly do that. So that's syndication. And if we go to web forms, I'm going to go over all the content types. Web form is one that we just happen to keep in this area that you can access. And so I've done a ton of tests on web forms. So I'll go into how you actually create them. But this is where you can find them when they're done. You can review the reports on them, download the content. So if people are signing up on the forms, you can download that, edit your form, and so forth. And you can also clone a form really easily back here. So if you have a form that you like and you want to use it again, you can quickly clone it. So this is web forms, but again, you're not going to really fully understand web forms until until I go through the content and show you. And then we can go to let's see, manage users. So this is going to be very important to you, managing your users. So let's click on that. So you're going to see two things. One are members and one are administrators. Truthfully, there really shouldn't be any members. Members are people who have access to your site just to view content that's not public. But the truth is, we don't really have private sites right now. So members doesn't really mean very much. It's really people who would see content that isn't accessible to the general public. Really, all we have is administrators, and right now I have 3 administrators in my system. But I could add an external user. All I have to do is click on add that, and then I could put somebody's I'm just going to put somebody's name in here, and then I could put their email address. And then I could make them an administrator. Make sure you click that because really there's no other reason to put them in here. And then of course you want to notify them. So if I click that and hit add, they're going to receive an email that lets them know that they've been made an administrator and that they can come back and change their password and log into the site. So you might want to let them know to be on the lookout for that email. Sometimes it does go into people's spam folders, but let's do that one more time because it's kind of important. I'm going to go to the wheel and I'm going to go to manage users, and this is where I can add additional administrators. So I'm going to go ahead and click on add user, and I would just type in whatever their username is that I want to give them, and then I could type in their email address, and I make sure I click make admin, and then I shoot them an email, and then they can log in and become an admin on the back end of my site. The other thing I can do is, let's see, I can hover over and I can remove somebody as an admin and look at their dashboard and so forth. And same with members. If again, I don't have a reason to have members because I don't have any content that isn't public, but I could remove somebody from the space. I could move somebody from this section into an admin. So if you forgot to check the admin button, this is where they would show up, but you could quickly move them in as an admin, or you could even block them. But again, there's no reason to block anybody because these sites are not showing hidden content. All right, so that is the wheel up until that point. So let's go ahead and look at what's on the wheel a little bit more. There is a section on the menu bar in the wheel, so let's go ahead and click on that. And now we are on the menu bar section. I could add a quick link, and all that means is I could add a direct link. So I'll just add one here. It's under path, and I'll just add the AFL-CIO, and I can add the title as AFL-CIO. And I can go ahead and create that, or sorry, save it. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and save that. All right, so now you can see that on my menu bar I have a link to the AFL-CIO, and in addition to that, I can come down here and I can move things around. I can tuck them underneath another menu option if I wanted to. I could disable something so that it's not showing up on my site, but it still exists. I can edit something, and that just simply means editing the name. So instead of saying union member benefits, I could edit that to just say member benefits or something like that. or I could simply delete it. Now, a couple things to know about deleting. If you delete something from your menu bar, that does not mean you're deleting the content. The content still lives somewhere in your site. It's just not going to show up on the menu bar. And if you delete, like right now, if I were to delete this COVID-19 resources, all the things underneath it would now become primary instead of secondary. And so I'd still have to go in and delete them as well. So it's better to go in and actually just remove the content and get rid of all of this than it is to come in here and use the menu bar as a way to try to hide the content. Instead, you should really just go and delete the content on the back end using, not delete it, but you can archive it using this little, the wheel. You go back into content and you could look up all the content on your site, and I'm just opening up the content area, and you could archive it instead. Because if you use the wheel, the menu bar to do that instead, you're just going to have a lot of junk content that you don't really want kind of floating around. So anyway, that's something that you can do to kind of keep your menu bar nice and clean, is just to come back here occasionally and look at it. Just make sure that you save the configuration before you exit, so that you save your work. And that is the menu bar. And that kind of concludes our training. There is this last thing, taxonomy, and that's if you wanted to add some vocabulary language, but that is something that I would say is a more advanced a more advanced function. So look for that in the advanced trainings later in this session. All right, thank you, and we'll see you at the next training.